Hello and welcome back to another episode of Combat X with Alan Dawson. You can catch us on Swerve Combat, which is on Roku, Fubo, Vizio, Sling, and Prime Video. And if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you like that channel and subscribe because it will help us grow a ton on that platform and mean we can keep on bringing in guests like my next one. He's one of the OGs of the bare knuckle game. He's a southpaw with power in his fists. He's a former light heavyweight champion. This is Combat X, Jared Warren. Welcome to the show, champ.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
First things first, you've got a background in kickboxing, in mixed martial arts. What made you want to transition into BKFC, where you fought 10 times since 2019, at a time when you would have made your debut? You would have been, what, 34, 35 years old? So why bare knuckle?
Yeah, man. So, like you said, I did start out in kickboxing. That was all my amateur fights. And I did well with it. I made it to the top. I was amateur world champ. And then when I wanted to turn pro, I was about 27 at the time. Really, MMA was the only thing that was big and kind of up and coming at the time. Especially in the States, they don't have a lot of pro kickboxing around. So I transitioned, started learning how to grapple and wrestle and stuff, but I didn't really take to it as much because at the end of the day, even though we get paid for this, fighters do it because they enjoy it. I enjoy fighting, I enjoy the striking, but I didn't really enjoy the grappling. It's cool stuff. It works. I definitely respect it. But as far as a personal enjoyment side, it wasn't really for me. So I only had a few pro MMA fights, and then I was kind of at a loss. I didn't know what I wanted to do next, and I took a hiatus from fighting and really just lifted weights and try and put on some muscle because most of my life I was really skinny. I'm still not a big guy, but now I'm at a healthy weight. So yeah, I took a break and kind of thought that I might be done, and then yeah, I think it was early 2019 is when I first got wind of BKFC, and I'm like, that's awesome. It's super exciting. It is professional and it's striking only. And I was just immediately hooked. Um, and Dave Mundell, good buddy, I'm training, partner of mine. I knew him way back then too. And he had just had his first fight the early part of the year. That's kind of how I saw it. And his old coach was talking about, um, yeah, BKFC's coming back to Tampa later this year. We're gonna have a few fighters on it, and my wheels were turning, and I kind of just commented on it. I was like, "Hey, you got room for one more?" And they got me on the prelims, and initially, man, I was just wanting to, kind of get one more fight and go out on a win. I had lost my last MMA fight, and it always bothered me. So yeah, I got a good first round knockout, and then I was kind of re-addicted, and I was like, well, shit, all I do is, work at the fire department full time, and then otherwise I just either hang out at home or hang out with friends here and there. So I was like, I don't really have a good reason not to see how far I can go with this. So I started getting a little more serious about training again and putting in the necessary time. And thankfully, it's gone well, and I was able to make that climb to the top. And now it's just about climbing back up a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So much to get into with that. But when you mentioned you were a skinny guy back in the day, is that what made you want to get into fighting? First of all, like when you were a kid, were you kind of like a slim,
No,
small kid?
I've always been scrappy. And really for the, majority of my youth, I didn't realize what a beanpole I was, I still had the confidence of a bigger guy. I just didn't know I was such a skinny little shit until I started putting on weight, and then I started seeing, pictures from back then. I'm like, man, I was kind of a little twerp. Um, but no, I kind of I've never been any kind of bully, never to start fights. I did have the upbringing that a lot of people do, hey, yeah, don't start them, but you finish them if you get in them. You know what I mean? So I kind of had that mentality, and I've always liked the idea of competitive fight sports. You know, I didn't have any family that did it or anything, but it was just always on my mind, even as a kid. So, yeah, once I got, you know, old enough, I just kind of jumped in the ring and tried my hand at it to see how well I could do.
Like, because you joined BKFC in 2019, it was still really close to it being, being founded at that time. So what do you make of like this rapid growth? It has been the fastest growing combat sport. It does offer something completely alternative to, UFC and also boxing. I think that's why it's so popular as well, because it's not trying to compete with those two, when they're so mainstream. And then in the years, recent years, you've got Conor McGregor becoming part owner, and it just seems to be getting bigger and bigger. When we had David Feldman on this show a few months back, he was saying it had recently been valued. I think it was $412 million. This is insane. Like, what do you make of like the rapid growth just in the time that you've been a part of the organization in the last 6 years?
It's pretty awesome, man. I mean, it's really cool to see it and to go from, when I first started in it, I had to tell everybody about it. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm doing this new bare knuckle thing. Cat scene, hello. Um, and then now to where like, people are coming up to me about it. Like they already knew that I did it, but they'll see an advertisement, elsewhere and they'll be like, dude, is that the same company you fight for? And I'll be like, BKFC? Yeah, that's the one. Um, and it's almost like comparative to, when the UFC started, like the Ultimate Fighter show, because they had still already been around for a little bit. I think that's kind of what made them take off and explode, and they started hitting that quick rise to the top. So yeah, man, it's been really cool, especially to get in early. Like you said, my first fight was BKFC 8, and now they're in the 70s on top of having fight nights and all that kind of stuff on top of it. So yeah, man, it's been really cool to see it blow up.
What do you think the next kind of frontier is for BKFC? Because, like we say, we've spoken to David Feldman, and he kind of brought this up about potentially boxing being the next big kind of revolution. Having boxers come in. Austin Trout, I think, is the best example of that. A welterweight champion in the organization. Looks like he's having a lot of fun. Towing the line. It's like I think it's given him a new lease of life in his career. But still, the organization in the sport is kind of dominated by former MMA guys, or maybe they had MMA training or different striking disciplines. It still seems like we could still pull in, a few of the boxers. Austin Trout did tell us on this show that he thinks Steve Cunningham, could be interested in joining. So when you've got like that caliber of champion boxer, or someone who has been a champion boxer, do you think that could be the next way that the BKFC evolves? And how concerned do you think you would be of that style coming into the organization? Or do you think like kickboxing, Muay Thai, those kind of strikings will be able to handle the boxing first guys?
Now, I think between the two, honestly, like boxing is more dangerous for the sport than kickboxing, especially like coming from a kickboxing background. Um, a lot of kickboxing and Muay Thai guys don't move their head too much, because you're taught not to, because you can duck into kicks into knees and stuff. So I had to make a big adjustment of my style. Um, but yeah, like Austin Trout is a great example. Like there has been some other, former champs that have crossed over and not done too well, but I think it's because they haven't had that willingness to adjust like he has. Like he knows he's not just boxing without gloves. I mean? There is a lot more aspects to it than that. So I think if you just take like, a base boxer and a base MMA guy, and they both make the adjustments, I really do think the pro boxers would have more of an advantage. Like they just got to make that adjustment to like, hey, it's a little rougher, and they can and will grab you a lot more. You know what I mean? Like you can't bob and weave out of everything. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to be willing to turn people around. People are gonna, get stupid and slam you once in a while. That always, we see that stuff happen a lot. But but yeah, I do like the idea of these, former champs, some big names coming over and stuff.
Yeah, me too. Do you see it at all in your team and in your gym with the way, like in MMA? I think we're seeing guys, in the last 5 years who have been specifically training MMA rather than training wrestling and then training, another discipline. It seems like, but maybe it even goes back but more than 5 years, probably showing my age, thinking things are more recent than they are. But do you think that's like, are you seeing that in BK, bare knuckle, specific bare knuckle gyms, and how the sport, from a technical point has changed, in the 6 years that you've been doing it?
Yeah, and really that's how what my gym has become over at Shift Combat. Um, you know, we and it's kind of like speaks for itself, um, Mundell's got a belt, I had a belt, and Jessica Boyer just won her belt. So we had 3 world titles in that one little hole in the wall gym where nobody else has had more than one. So, um, yeah, we just got, a good stable of fighters, and everybody that's in there is training to win in BKFC. Other people come in for little private lessons for their own little thing, like maybe they want to learn, you know, like some Muay Thai or some MMA, but they're not fighters, you know what I mean? They're just people that want to learn some like either self-defense or like fitness or stuff. So there's a little dabble of that, but all the actual fighters in there, are bare knuckle people, and that's what we all train specifically for, and I feel like it's been paying off.
As a former champ and BKFC mainstay, what's motivating you ahead of this May 2 light heavyweight fight with Joseph Creer? It's so close to, you seem so close to a title shot because victory over Creer could see you fight the winner of Richmond and Josh Dyer, which is the following week. Where you could recapture that belt that you held. Is that what's driving you to get the win here, knowing that you could get a title shot within 3 months, 4 months, 5 months this year?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like I definitely don't by any means overlook career or anybody they put in front of me because they never give me easy fights, which I'm appreciative of. I'm just hopeful that things do go my way on May 2nd, that they kind of extend me the same courtesy they did Richmond, because he actually, had lost 2 title fights back to back, and and then he kind of had one random fight and then right back in the title mix. Um, which don't get me wrong, like deserving so, and I was the one calling him out because I was like out of the top 5, I feel like he's the best guy, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, so I'm regardless of who wins that fight, I have beef with both of them and different manners, you know what I mean? Respectful beef towards Richmond, and Dyer's just a dick, so I don't like him. But yeah, I'd like to be right back in that mix, and I don't see why I wouldn't be. If you look at my climb to the top, um, you know, nobody's been through the same gauntlet as me. Like all my fights leading up to, the title shot, were almost all undefeated guys. One guy had one loss, and he was coming off the best win of his life. Um, and like, you'll hear guys like, Lorenzo being a loudmouth, trying to always talk me down and talk himself up. But if you look at his climb to a title shot, all his fights leading up to it, he only had to beat one person that had a win. One. The rest of them were either debut people or losses, or he got knocked out. And so like he wants to try and talk shit, but it's like, hey, dude, this ain't apples to apples. You know what I mean? Like, you got an easier route, maybe because you're a loudmouth and I'm not. But I fought my way to the top. I had to beat former champions to get there. You know what I mean? So I'm not afraid to put in the work to do it again.
There's one thing I wanted to talk to you about because, like, I think we see it in a lot of the combat sports right now where, guys your kind of age are still right at the top. Is there anything you think you are doing differently than what fighters that were past maybe 35 years old weren't doing 10, 15 years ago? Is there a reason why we're getting, more longevity in certain combat sports these days?
Yeah, man, I think a lot of it, like the guys who are at the top that are older or you know, got a good fight IQ and have using their brains more. I mean, this is a very unforgiving sport, and you know, anybody can go out and crack somebody early and catch a win. But if it's not fully based on athleticism and everything, you know what I mean? Like, of course, like guys in their 20s are gonna have a natural advantage over guys in their 40s, but doesn't mean we can't still be in shape and have some old man strength, and one or two good punches can put somebody away. You know what I mean? So I think as a result of that, like being able to hit hard and being able to be cognitive of what you're doing, gives you opportunity to still be on top at what would be considered an older age for combat sports.
Yeah. And what mentioned about career on May 2nd, he's got boxing, Muay Thai experience, BJJ black belt, real all rounder in combat. What kind of fight are you anticipating with him? You doing anything differently in camp?
No, nothing specifically different. We try and keep that mindset like, you know, don't worry about what they're gonna do, worry about what you're gonna do. That being said, like, I've seen his fights live, not like just not he wasn't like on my radar or anything. I just like, I pretty much catch all the BKFC fights that I can. And I like his style. I respect it. You're right, he does have some good boxing background, and I do like it when I see people once in a while like try to use technique, you know what I mean? Like some people they just want to rush in and brawl the whole time, which is one form of excitement. But I think, seeing the other side of it too, when someone tries to be good and technical, I think that's enjoyable to watch too. So I think mostly he is on the more technical side. Um, but I could be wrong. Maybe he changes his style and comes out and brawls this time. But I'm uh I'm open and ready for both. But no, I do like and respect the guy, and I think he's a good fighter, and I think it's definitely going to be an entertaining fight for everybody.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And it's headlining a card with a teammate of yours, Crystal Pittman. She's lower down at the event. For anyone anywhere watching, Crystal's part of probably one of the most iconic photographs in BKFC history. Just when she went to war in her very first fight, huge swelling below the eye, blood dripping off her face, all over her arms and shoulders. Yet she looks like she's having the time of her life. Is that photograph up in in your gym, in your team? Do you guys still speak about this? Because whenever you're looking at BKFC online, it just seems to be one of the photos that's always there.
That's true. Yeah, we don't have that one specifically in the gym, but we do have a lot of like cool little random fight photos that our coaches and stuff have put up. Um, but yeah, man, like she's always a part of entertaining fights, and a lot of times why people enjoy girl fights so much is because um a lot of them, that's it, like Crystal does, but a lot of them don't have like knockout power a lot of times. So I think they're not as worried about getting knocked out, so they just get after it. You know what I mean? And they're always bloody and scrappy and stuff, and she really is like getting good. Like those early fights you were talking about, that was before she was part of Shift, and she was just pretty much all heart back then. She didn't have any amateur experience, she just came right into the sport and was just scrappy and just kind of doing what she could do. But now that she's actually like she's got some like real coaches behind her, like she's getting nasty, man. Like it's not like, you know, I could like if we're kind of like sparring that I can just fully like take my foot off the gas and be like, "Oh, I'm just gonna toy with her the whole time." It's like, no, if I don't stay sharp, she can crack me with something. She's getting really good, and um, and like I said, you saw, um, Borga just won her championship, so she's good and scrappy too. So we got some good females in there, and you know, good handful of other teammates that are doing big things. Even you probably already seen it, but like Michael Larimore is one of our teammates as well. He's on on the same card as me. So I'm looking forward to seeing him getting back in there. He's always in the gym, putting in work and everything. So yeah, we got a healthy stable.
Yeah, so you've got there's three of you on the same card then, May 2. So you're gonna go get 3 wins. What would the celebrations be like in Clearwater afterwards?
um, shit. I mean, drinks on me. You know what I mean? Like, you know, we a few years ago we were pretty fortunate. There was a fight, you know, in the greater Tampa Bay area, and I think we had like 6 or 7 fighters on it, and we're like, you know, it's a shift show, you know, and you know, we're getting ready to go put on another shift show. So it's exciting.
Are you still working as a fireman? How have you been balancing, both careers as, training, preparing for an event, doing the event while also, working in, as a emergency responder?
Yeah, man, that's still the, you know, the full time long term gig. You know, I got 15 years in with the department, and I got 10 to go, but um, it is a good I think it is a good career to balance out what I'm doing with fighting and stuff because um, even though we're typically on the busier side, you know, I can usually like sneak out a quick workout whenever I'm on duty, you know, in between calls and stuff, and um, you know, the rest of the crew like is understandable. They know what we're, you know, what I'm trying to accomplish and stuff. So like at my station, we have like a couple fire engines and a couple, you know, rescues we call them, and you know, we usually like alternate back and forth with calls, but it's like they'll help me out. You know what I mean? Like if I'm in the middle of like trying to buzz out a quick workout and we get a call, they'll pick it up and vice versa. You know, we help each other out like that. And I got a ton of support coming out to this fight because this is my first time fighting close to home in, you know, a couple years at least. So
Will the
you know,
department be there?
yeah, I got a bunch of fellow firemen coming out to support and get rowdy and stuff. So it's gonna be awesome, man.
Yeah, the camaraderie. I think fighting is an individual sport, but you do have your team. So there's camaraderie in the gym and stuff. But the camaraderie, that must be, just as strong, in the fire department as well.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely a brotherhood, man, and you know, they're all spending their hard-earned money to come and buy tickets and stuff, and you know, it means a lot to me to have people there in the crowd, you know, cheering for you and stuff. So it's definitely you know, a couple different kinds of family I got.
Do you feel like a affinity towards Stipe Miocic, like one of the goats of the heavyweight division in UFC, but he was a full-time fireman as well. I think it was in Ohio. Were you a fan of his, seeing what he was able to pull off, balancing both careers as a, fighting champion and as a fireman as well?
Yeah, man, it's been cool to see you know, someone else similar that's, you know, made it to the top, you know, we're both blue collar guys that, you know, still got to work, but somehow, you know, you I guess just push yourself extra, you know, to make it to the top and stuff. So yeah, you know, that guy, you know, he's he's well more or more well known than, you know, I'll ever be. But it's, you know, cool to see other guys make it like that. And he had a really good long time reign, and you know, fought into his 40s as well. So that's kind of awesome, you know.
Are there any last messages for the BKFC fight fans who'll be watching? It's on DAZN, May 2 showdown, Joseph Creer at the BKFC fight night in Clearwater, Florida.
Don't miss it, man. It's it's surprising to me that this one is considered a fight night and not a number card. Like, not that it makes any difference to me, but there's a lot of good fights on there. You know what I mean? Like lot of people that have you know, got some good experience and that are, you know, pretty well known. So um, you know, it's pretty exciting, man. So yeah, tune in, don't miss it, don't blink. You know what I mean? These things don't typically go the distance too often. So yeah, tune in and freaking enjoy it like the rest of us do.
Awesome place to leave it. That was Combat X, Jared Warren.